When you think of Vikings, what comes to mind? Fierce warriors? Long ships cutting through icy waters? The clash of steel, the roar of battle, the plundered treasures of distant shores? That's the image most people have. But what if I told you the Vikings weren't just raiders and conquerors? What if I told you they were also philosophers, community builders, and advocates for fairness and balance? What if I told you their wisdom, as captured in the Hávamál, aligns in surprising ways with modern ideas about how to build a just and harmonious society? Now, let me be clear. The Vikings didn't have political or economic systems like we do today. They didn't have capitalism, socialism, or even centralized governments. Their world was one of clans, chieftains, and assemblies, what they called things. But their values, as reflected in the Hávamál, offer timeless insights into how humans can live together in fairness and balance. For this episode, all Hávamál quotations are from Jackson Crawford's translation, which is widely respected for its clarity and scholarly rigor. I've chosen this version to ensure accuracy and consistency in how we interpret the wisdom of the Norse. And here's where it gets interesting. The values expressed in the Hávamál, moderation, generosity, fairness, and self-reliance, align closely with the principles of social capitalism. Social capitalism is a system that balances individual ambition with collective welfare, ensuring that personal success contributes to the greater whole. While the Norse didn't have a formal economic system, their worldview reflects a similar balance between personal effort and community responsibility. Today, we're going to explore how the Hávamál, Odin's poem of wisdom, reflects values that resonate with modern ideas of social harmony, fairness, and responsibility. But we'll also be careful not to over-modernize these ancient ideas. The Hávamál is a product of its time, and will respect its historical and cultural context as we draw these connections. So, grab a horn of mead, settle in by the fire, and let's dive into the wisdom of the All-Father himself. The Hávamál is one of the most fascinating pieces of Old Norse literature. Written down in the 13th century, but rooted in much older oral traditions, it's a collection of wisdom attributed to Odin. But this isn't just a list of do's and don'ts. It's a guide to living wisely, navigating relationships, and building a harmonious society. Now, you might wonder why we're focusing on the Hávamál when there are so many other significant Norse texts. The truth is, the Hávamál stands out because it offers timeless, practical advice on how to live as an individual within a community. It emphasizes values like moderation, generosity, and self-reliance, qualities that were essential for survival in Viking Age Scandinavia. That said, if we wanted to explore the broader structures of Norse society, we could turn to the sagas of Icelanders, which, through their stories, reflect the legal and social dynamics of early Iceland, or the Gragas and Gulathing law, which provide insights into the legal systems that govern their communities. But the Hávamál is unique because it focuses on the ethical and philosophical foundations of Norse life, foundations that resonate deeply with the principles of social capitalism, where individual success is tied to the well-being of the community. The Hávamál teaches us about moderation, self-reliance, generosity, and fairness, values that resonate deeply with the principles of social harmony. But before we dive into those connections, let's quickly define what we mean by social capitalism. Social capitalism is a system that combines the innovation and efficiency of capitalism with the fairness and social welfare principles of socialism. It's about balance. On one hand, it encourages personal ambition and rewards hard work. On the other, it ensures that society provides the resources, like education, healthcare, and safety nets that allow everyone to thrive. And here's the key connection. The Hávamál reflects the same balance. It emphasizes the importance of personal effort and wisdom, while also stressing the need for generosity, fairness, and reciprocity. In Norse society, success wasn't just about individual gain. It was about contributing to the community and maintaining harmony. This is the essence of social capitalism, a system where individual ambition and collective welfare go hand in hand. Now here's the kicker. These ideas aren't new. The Hávamál was talking about balance, fairness, and responsibility centuries ago. Let me show you how the Hávamál is packed with wisdom that aligns with the core principles of social harmony. Let's start with relationships. Odin tells us in stanza 42, "Be a friend to your friend, and repay each gift with a gift. Repay laughter with laughter. Repay treachery with treachery." This stanza is fundamentally about reciprocity, the idea that social bonds are maintained through balanced exchanges of kindness and support. Odin's advice is not just about returning favors, but about building cycles of trust and obligation that hold a community together. In social capitalism, this principle is institutionalized. Individual contributions to society are reciprocated with communal benefits, such as education, healthcare, and social security. The Hávamal's emphasis on reciprocity prefigures the social capitalist ideal that no one prospers alone, and that mutual support is the foundation of a thriving society. Of course, Norse reciprocity also included negative responses, as in repay treachery with treachery, which is less than ideal for modern capitalism's emphasis on forgiveness or restorative justice, but, well, we have learned some things over the years. The Hávamál also warns against excess. Stanza 77 says, "Cows die, family die. You will die just the same way. I only know one thing that never dies, the reputation of the one who's died." Here Odin reminds us that material wealth and even family are impermanent, but a person's reputation, built on generosity and other conduct, endures. This reflects the social capitalist view that social capital, or the respect and trust one earns through good deeds, is a form of wealth that benefits the individual and the community. In both Norse society and social capitalism, ethical behavior and generosity are investments in a legacy that outlasts material possessions, reinforcing the idea that true prosperity is measured by the positive impact one leaves on others. Here's an important summative distinction of note. The Hávamál doesn't condemn wealth itself. Instead, it warns against hoarding wealth or using it selfishly. In Norse society, wealth was meant to be shared, not just for moral reasons, but because it strengthened social bonds. This idea of sharing wealth aligns with the principles of social capitalism, where resources are redistributed to ensure the well-being of the entire community. In both systems, wealth is not an end in itself, but a tool for building stronger, more harmonious societies. The Hávamál gives another warning against excess, alongside advocating for measured speech. Stanza 19 says, "Don't hold on to the mead horn, but drink your fair share. Say something useful or stay quiet, and no one else will judge you poorly if you go to sleep early." This stanza champions moderation in both action and in speech. Odin's advice to drink your fair share and say something useful or stay quiet is a call for self-restraint and prudence, which are essential for social harmony. In social capitalism, moderation prevents the kind of reckless behavior, whether in consumption or communication, that can destabilize communities. Just as excessive drinking or boastful talk can disrupt a feast, unchecked greed or irresponsible rhetoric can erode trust in society. The Hávamál's message is clear. Ethical self-control is foundational to collective well-being. This brings us to generosity. Odin advises in stanza 39, "I have never met a man so generous, nor so hospitable, that he would not welcome repayment, nor have I met a man so giving that he'd turn down a thing offered in return." Odin's observation here is that even the most generous people value reciprocity. Gift giving is not just charity. It is a social contract that creates ongoing relationships and mutual obligations. In Norse society, this ongoing cycle of giving and receiving was a practical way to build alliances and ensure mutual support. Social capitalism similarly relies on the idea that generosity and social investment, whether through taxes, philanthropy, or community service, create a more stable and prosperous society for all. The expectation of reciprocity encourages ongoing generosity, strengthening social networks and collective resilience. The Hávamál also critiques inequality. Stanzas 132 and 133 warn, I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you will take my advice, you will profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Never mock, never laugh at a guest or a wanderer. Those inside the house rarely know anything about the stranger who knocks at their door. But there is no man so good that he has no flaw, nor a man so bad he's good for nothing. These stanzas urge empathy for the vulnerable, here outsiders, and humility in judgment. Odin warns against mocking or dismissing guests and wanderers, or dismissing those in need, reminding us that everyone has value and that fortune is unpredictable. This aligns with social capitalism's commitment to social safety nets and equitable treatment for all, regardless of status. The Hávamal's call for empathy is not just about charity, but about recognizing our shared humanity and the need to support the vulnerable. In both Norse wisdom and social capitalism, a just society is one where no one is left frozen outside while others sit warm at the hearth. Great! Now that we have explored some content from the Hávamál, it's critical to remember that the Hávamál offers ethical principles for individuals, not systematic solutions. As I mentioned earlier, the Norse lacked modern institutions like welfare programs or labor laws, and their focus on reciprocity and prudence was rooted more on clan survival, not economic theory. However, these ancient verses resonate because they articulate a timeless truth. Societies thrive when fairness, moderation, and care for the vulnerable temper ambition. Social capitalism builds on this wisdom by translating those values into policy, replacing feuds with rule of law, and personal generosity with collective safety nets. The Hávamál doesn't map perfectly onto modern systems, but it reminds us that even the fiercest individuals understood no one prospers alone. Now let's look at how the Hávamál's wisdom stacks up against the major economic systems we know today. First, let's consider predatory capitalism. The Hávamál repeatedly warns against excess and selfishness. Stanza 19 urges moderation. Don't hold on to the mead horn, but drink your fair share. This is not just about drinking, it's about knowing when enough is enough, in all things. In a society that practices predatory capitalism, that rewards endless accumulation and hoarding, this wisdom is ignored. The Norse ideal, as seen in stanza 39, is that even the most generous person values reciprocity. In predatory capitalism, however, the cycle of giving and receiving breaks down. Wealth is hoarded and the bonds of community are eroded. The Hávamál's vision of prosperity is lost when generosity and moderation are replaced by greed and exploitation. Next, let's look at social democracy, which, as practiced in the Scandinavian countries, the old Norse homelands, blends market dynamism with a strong social safety net, using progressive taxes and universal services to ensure no one is left behind. This model echoes much of the Hávamál's wisdom. It values reciprocity, fairness, and care for the vulnerable, creating a society where trust and cooperation are the norm. Stanzas 132 and 133 again urge us never to mock or turn away a guest or wanderer, reminding us that everyone has value and fortune is unpredictable. But while social democracy institutionalizes generosity and support, it can sometimes drift into bureaucracy or foster dependency, losing the Hávamál's emphasis on personal responsibility and self-reliance. This system works best where social trust is high and people still feel a duty to contribute, just as the Hávamál advises. When that balance is lost, social democracy can struggle to maintain the harmony and resilience that Norse wisdom celebrates. Social capitalism takes these ideas a step further. Instead of simply layering social programs onto capitalism, it makes the social purpose of the economy explicit and foundational. In a true social capitalist system, the rules, institutions, and even the Constitution are designed so that the economy serves the common good by default, not just through policy, but by structure. This approach aims to bake in the Hávamál's values of reciprocity, fairness, and personal responsibility, as seen in stanzas like 42, which emphasize the importance of repaying each gift with a gift and building cycles of trust and obligation. Social capitalism isn't immune to the pitfalls of bureaucracy or power imbalances, but it is built to continually adapt and hold leaders accountable, keeping the warmth of the hearth shared by all, and no one left out in the cold. Finally, Marxism and communism, in both theory and practice, seek to abolish private business, personal property, and private wealth, aiming for a society where all resources are collectively owned and distributed. However, the Hávamal's wisdom stands in contrast to these ideals. The Norse proverbs, such as stanzas 39 and 42, emphasize the importance of voluntary generosity and reciprocal exchange, virtues that flourish in a society where individuals have ownership and agency over their actions and resources. Stanza 77, which highlights the enduring value of personal reputation, further underscores the significance of individual responsibility and achievement. In a Marxist or communism system where private enterprise and personal wealth are eliminated, the opportunity for individuals to exercise generosity, build reputation, and engage in meaningful reciprocity is fundamentally altered. The Hávamál does not advocate for enforced equality or the erasure of personal distinction. Instead, it values generosity that is freely given, and social bonds built on trust and mutual respect. Historical attempts at Marxism and communism have also often resulted in the concentration of power and the suppression of individual initiative, outcomes that run counter to the spirit of the Hávamál. While Norse wisdom recognizes the importance of caring for the vulnerable, it cautions against systems that undermine personal freedom, responsibility, and the organic ties that arise from individual ownership and voluntary exchange. So, what system best honors the Hávamal's wisdom? Social capitalism comes closest. It balances self-reliance and communal care, moderation and generosity, reciprocity and empathy. It replaces predatory greed with shared prosperity, and democratic neglect with real investment in the social fabric. Like the man who drinks mead in moderation, it tempers ambition with responsibility, ensuring the warmth of the hearth is shared and no one is left out in the cold. So, what can we learn from the Hávamál? That a society built on wisdom, fairness, and responsibility is not just a dream, it's a possibility. The Hávamál offers a vision of a society where individual success is tied to the well-being of the community, a vision that resonates deeply with the principles of social capitalism. The Vikings may be remembered as warriors, but their wisdom, as captured in the Hávamál, shows us they were also philosophers and visionaries. They understood the importance of fairness, balance, and responsibility, values we desperately need today. By embracing the values of the Hávamál, we can create a society that is both prosperous and just, a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what lessons from the Hávamál resonate most with you. Until next time, remember, wisdom is the greatest treasure of all.